Okay, I'm going to show some differences on 2.9 cylinder heads. There is an early 86 to 87 thin casting cylinder head. Then there was an improved 88 to 93. I'm pretty sure it started in 88, midways through 88, to help stop some of the cracking issues with these cylinder heads. Now, I've personally never had a problem with the earlier casting cracking. I've put several of them through their paces and never had a problem. But most of the time when they crack, it's due to an overheating issue. Blew a radiator, a hose, something, and trying to drive it a mile or two and get it off the road, and it gets the engine hot. That's usually when these things will crack. So, as long as you don't get these engines hot, you probably ain't going to have a problem with the early head. But I'm going to show what I like and what I don't like about these cylinder heads, and why I prefer on my engines to run the earlier casting. So this is your early 2.9 cylinder head, and this is your later improved. You'll see this head has more material around the rocker bosses, added supports. The intake ports are thicker. There's material added around the valve springs. These heads are just under 1/4 of an inch thick on the exhaust roofs. These are 3/8. But these heads are a more robust casting. They're tougher. But these heads will make more power because of the port design. What these heads made up for in strength, they sacrificed in efficiency. And I'm about to show you. So, this is an early 2.9 intake port. It's got a nice slim valve guide and a nice deep bowl area going around it for good flow, good port velocity. It's a fairly nice port. This is your improved head. As you can see, the valve guide is shorter and wider. It protrudes over into the bowl, and it blocks up most of the intake port. High-speed airflow coming through a port does not like to change direction. So that airflow, like this, is coming up through here at a high speed. Most of your port velocity is in the upper half of your port. So it comes in, hits this, it parts, rides that bowl area, and goes into the cylinder. This one, it's going to come in, hit this, try to deflect, hit essentially a 45-degree wall, get knocked down into the roof of the valve, causing it to slow down, and you're going to lose port velocity. You're going to lose overall airflow, so you're going to make less power. The exhaust is the same way. I'll flip these up to give you a little bit better perspective. Here is your improved casting cylinder valve pockets, your bowls. This is your earlier casting. Your later improved, earlier. So you'll notice that the air trying to come up through here is going to hit this. It's going to get squeezed and deflected up, straight down, basically right into that valve, and then have to turn and go into the cylinder. That's not good. On your exhaust, you've got pretty much a flat floor sitting here. Get this out of the way. That's not good. So that air, the way this works, you would think that air is going, like, there's your exhaust port. You think that air is going straight out. It's not. This air comes in and it turns. It swoops. Call it combustion swirl. It helps with a more complete burn, makes more power. That air comes up and it comes into that cylinder and it spins. Same way with your exhaust. That air's not going straight out your exhaust. That air's coming in and it's doing this. It makes a turn, swoops. So, as you can see, after it hits this wall, the flex goes over here and turns, tries to go out. It's getting slowed down. This is going to reduce, it's going to produce more back pressure. You're not going to get as much exhaust gases out of the cylinder. It's not going to make as much power. So with your earlier 2.9 head, that gas, the air is coming in, makes a nice smooth transition, comes right up this seat into that chamber. Just like this right here. Makes a turn. Because it's not coming over here, going around a wide valve guide and getting up around the valve, it's just smooth. So this is going to make more power. On your exhaust side here, you'll notice, like what I was just talking about, look how much more bowl area there is to the side of this port. Remember, that exhaust gas, it's coming in, doing that, it's turning. So it's going in, over into this nice smooth bowl, transitions out the exhaust port. You ain't got the big flat plate right here for the valve guide, so it's not causing as much turbulence or back pressure. Much better flowing port. The easiest way I could say to compare these, using a more common term, this would be comparable to like a stock 302 head. This would be comparable to like a GT40P head. They're both stock castings, but this is a better flowing design. I'd love to get a set of these on a flow bench one of these days, just to see how much difference each one of them has in its stock. I would be willing to about bet money that a set of these heads here would make at least 15 more horsepower than what these would. Both of them untouched. I bet it would be at least a 15 horsepower difference. But I mean, good grief. It just speaks for itself. And that's why I prefer to run the earlier casting. The heads that's on my truck now are the early casting like this. Last time it was apart, they were Magnaflux, new guides, blah blah blah. You know, they're in really good shape. So if I was starting from scratch and I was going to put port work, money, time into it, I would probably build these castings, just because in the long run they would be more durable. I'm probably not going to do that. I'm probably just going to use my cylinder heads that I already have, because it's just going to save me a lot of work. But this shows the difference between the early and the late cylinder head. The chamber's the same, the valve sizes are the same. The only difference in the chambers is you can see that shadow right behind the plug. It's cut back more on the improved head, where it's not on the early. I don't know what the purpose of that is. It doesn't really make any sense, but that's the only difference in the chambers. Now I usually do run the valves out of the newer style heads. I'll find a set and put in them because they're usually not as worn. And I measured these at one time, and it seemed like the valves out of the newer style heads were just a couple grams lighter. Don't make much difference, but every little bit helps. So, but that's the difference in your early versus late 2.9 cylinder head.